Hey there! I didn't see you guys. I was just reading about the Garland case, Supreme Court appointment. This case is just one of the many examples on why the Constitution and its flexibility is so important today. Come with me, let me show you something. This here is Alexander Hamilton, one of the framers of the Constitution. He actually fought pretty hard for us to have a flexible Constitution.
We gained independence, but getting independence from the British is just one challenge of many others. The biggest challenge we have so far is creating a sound government that will stand the test of time and allow America to flourish. However, this sound government must ensure that the state government is strong and individual liberties are ensured, such that tyranny will not prosper as it did under the Brits. And so, I suggest the Articles of Confederation!
This Articles of Confederation is complete bollocks. It creates a weak government that won't be able to achieve anything. It's going to be a complete failure.
A few years later, RIP Articles of Confederation.
In 1787, Alexander Hamilton and the other framers signed the Constitution, which was radically different than the Articles of Confederation. The basis of the Constitution was to lay out the powers of the government, its structure, and the rights of the people. It also came along with the Elastic Clause, which was allowed changes to the Constitution in the future through amendments and through the unwritten Constitution, which included the President's cabinet, political parties that were to be formed, and judicial review.
The first president, George Washington, had his own cabinet, consisting of the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of War, and the Attorney General. However, nowhere in the Constitution is it listed that the president should have a cabinet or the process of which they would be selected. Therefore, this shows the flexibility in the structure of the government of the Constitution. The Constitution also failed to mention political parties, which soon formed after the creation of the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, into Federalists and Democratic Republicans. In 1803, the court case Marbury v. Madison established judicial review, which expanded the powers of the judicial branch to declare something unconstitutional. This paved the way for future court cases that would directly impact the rights of people and the powers of the government. The 13th Amendment revoked the Corwin Amendment and banned slavery throughout the United States. Lincoln's 14th Amendment stated that anyone who was born in the United States would become a natural citizen, changing what it meant to be an American. The 15th Amendment allowed anyone to vote, regardless of their race, expanding the amount of people who were involved in the government. The 18th Amendment is a good example of constitutional flexibility as it instituted the Prohibition. 14 years later, the Prohibition was overturned by the 21st Amendment. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, expanding once again the amount of people that were involved in the U.S. government. The 22nd Amendment put restrictions on the executive branch by limiting the amount of terms to 2. This was after Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected for 4 terms. If the president would want to run for a 3rd term, he would need to get 3/4 approval from Congress.
Current events, such as the debate on the Second Amendment with gun control and the Patriot Act with its controversial reach and Apple versus FBI on encryption, are trying times for the Constitution. These events define not only the Constitution, but the power of the government as well, which is fundamental in keeping America a democratic republic. Gun control has been debated since the 60s, but has recently caught attention from the constant mass shootings perpetrated by individuals with guns. The murderers in Virginia Tech, Columbine, Planned Parenthood, and Sandy Hook all acquired guns that were guaranteed to them by the Second Amendment. While steps have been taken to limit the quantity of war-level weaponry, such as the assault rifle ban, other proposed bans of guns are contested by the Second Amendment with Congress at a standstill. And thus, without any change to the Constitution, the debate rages on. Many advocates for gun control cite the outdatedness of the Second Amendment, with modern-day weaponry far succeeding what the Founding Fathers had at the time, and the many massacres occurring daily. However, many advocates against gun control retort with arguments such as the government becoming too powerful or even threatening an armed insurrection. The Patriot Act and Apple versus the FBI go hand in hand with its controversial reach and power over American citizens. Powers that were not given to the government by the people are being used without a second thought of the Republic's Constitution. This is a direct example of the government testing constitutional flexibility, with the Constitution being bended more and more as these events occur and acts continue. There has been a split over the public opinion on the Patriot Act and Apple versus FBI. The majority of Americans are dissatisfied with the Patriot Act and would like it to be reformed or dissolved, citing privacy violations and discrimination, such as the government's secretive spying programs on Muslims, or citing possible international conflicts, with the U.S. spying extensively on its allies through diplomats and other officials. Dissatisfaction that has evolved into active protests, demonstrations, and even the hacktivist group Anonymous fear-mongering and even attacking the NSA. Apple versus FBI, however, has Americans split down the middle, with many favoring Apple's stance on protecting the phone, citing this as a gateway for civil liberty violations from the government, while many support the FBI's stance in unlocking, citing national security concerns. This debate on these specific examples will rage on for a decade, and the effects of the outcomes will affect the nation for multiple decades to come. Yet, the question on constitutional flexibility will never change. How far can the government change or bend the Constitution before it changes the very republic on which it stands into one that tramples civil liberties? Josh, you make something that sounds great.
Well, one of the key parts of Trump's campaign is to actually tear up the 14th Amendment that Lincoln put down, so that way he could get rid of so-called anchor babies. The future of the United States will be determined on how we think the government should be organized, what powers it should have, and what powers we the people should have.